there are scenarios where no amount of money will buy you food. Most people aren't going to come to this until there's a crisis, right? And we have a crisis right now. We are at war. But what I recommend people start with, and most people also, they think of gardens. I'm like, no, actually, the most nutrient dense and productive things that you can do are going to be animal products.
Hey, have you taken a good look at the banks lately? On the surface, everything seems fine, but there's a whole lot more going on underneath. It's like looking under the hood of a car and finding a mess of broken wires and parts. Truth is, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. Why risk your money for a tiny 5% return when things are so shaky? This is where Noble Gold Investments can help. They know how you can keep your money safe. They suggest gold and silver, oldies but goodies in the financial world. Plus, they've got a sweet deal, a free quarter-ounce gold standard coin this month if you qualify. Pretty cool, right? If you're curious, just give them a call at 877-646-5347. It's just a chat, no pressure. They'll help you figure out if gold and silver are right for you. Or visit noblegoldinvestments.com and take the first step towards a safer financial future. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, it's Jean Nolan here. Thank you so much for joining us again for another inspired conversation. And this one truly will be an inspired conversation. By the end of this conversation, I can almost promise you that you will be inspired to take the next step on your journey to greater self-reliance, personal responsibility. Our guest today didn't start out where she is today. As a matter of fact, she was very successful in the real estate business, had a huge portfolio, and a nudge, a hunch, intuition to get out of it and get out of it in time. And then she completely changed and turned her life around. And today she is inspiring and teaching hundreds of thousands of people how to become more self-reliant and how to do it even if you have no experience. Please welcome with me Marjorie Wildcraft, the founder of the Grow Network. Marjorie.
Hey, Jean, I'm so delighted to be here.
Oh,
yeah. I just love your mellow, laid back. We need that.
The honor is mine, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us from the warmer regions of the world today. You have a really nice tan. I can tell you spend a lot of time out in the garden too.
I do. Yeah, I live in Puerto Rico now, and I've been fortunate enough to live in quite a few different bioregions to really learn how to grow food in different, like freezing cold Colorado, or, we used to joke about the apocalypse came to Texas every year because you'd always have drought, flooding, pestilence. Like that's an average gardening year in Texas. So, and then Oregon, and but it's been great. But now I'm in, Puerto Rico, loving it.
Well, thank you for taking the time today. And I kind of already hinted at it. Now, when people meet someone who's really good at growing their own food and has an understanding of nature, of biology, of organics, of all that, usually it's like, oh, that's amazing. I wish I could do that. Yeah. But you didn't start out like this. You weren't an avid gardener from the get-go or even raised this way, right? You started out completely different. Yeah. So can you share a little bit about your story and how it all started for you?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in kind of a poor family. My dad was an artist and my mom a photographer, and we grew in, South Florida. And I got an engineering degree from the University of Florida. And I thought that's a solid job. That's back in the days when, getting a good job, you could make good money, and having a degree got you that job kind of formula, which is no longer appropriate. But an engineering degree is a great background. And I had always dreamed of living overseas, and I managed to score an expat job with Motorola based in Hong Kong. I was in Southeast Asia. And somebody mentioned this guy who had a course on wealth that sounded really, really interesting. His name was Robert. And I said, wow, yeah, this sounds, I'll go do that. And the guy just blew my mind with his concepts and his understanding. And it inspired me so much that I left engineering and created my own real estate investment business, which became so successful as it was in Austin, Texas. I chose that market. And it was so successful, though, that Robert came back to me and said, hey, would you be the lead testimonial on my infomercials with Time Life books selling Rich Dad, Poor Dad products? It was Robert Kiyosaki. So I was like, yeah, sure, let's do that. And I was on national television every day for 4 years. It was kind of fun. People I hadn't heard from for years were calling me up like, I just saw you on television. I'm like, yeah, I know. Isn't that weird? But yeah, I've always stayed in touch with my intuitive side, and actually done a lot of spiritual work to keep that, and my connection, and definitely had a real sense. The real estate industry, just on a good time, is a pretty nasty business, and then it was getting really, really, really. I mean, we were seeing fraud like on scales. And I said, look, it's time to get out of this. And also, how things happen all at once. It's like not just one thing. But I was also, the real pivotal moment was I was volunteering on a project to get locally grown food into an elementary school. And that project was just a complete and total failure. And I will never forget the night when it just became obvious to us that it wasn't going to work. And it was because there weren't enough farmers to provide even part of the vegetables to one small rural elementary school.
Okay, I read that story. Sorry to interrupt, Marjorie, because this is such a crucial piece of information, I think, for this whole story. So you wanted to provide healthy organic vegetables for a small provincial school, and you couldn't find enough of it in the entire county, and it's not a small county, to provide even enough veggies for that little school.
Yeah. And on the team was Steve Bridges, who was the president of the Texas Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association, Forrest Arnold, who was the president of the Austin Organic Gardeners Club. I mean, we knew who was growing in Texas, and you're right, there just wasn't enough. And I knew that there was only 4 days worth of food supply in inventory in the grocery stores. And I knew that food is shipped on average about 1,500 miles to get to you. And I also knew that I was surrounded by about 20 million Texans who were armed to the teeth. Like,
they got more bullets than veggies, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, I know. How many guns per person in Texas? When I moved there, that used to be something that annoyed me, and now I'm like, yeah, right on.
We're with you, Marjorie. We're with you.
Yeah. But seriously, that night, I mean, I had been the one who'd organized it was the Red Rock Community Center, and so I'm responsible for, I was shaking so hard, I couldn't get the chairs under the table, and turning the lights off, and unfortunately my husband was driving me home at the time, because and for years I had panic attacks and night sweats, and I just said, look, whatever I've been doing in my life prior, somebody has to address this problem. I know you've seen those lines at the bottom of the email that says, if you see a problem, you're the one to fix it. I used to hate that thing, but I just knew that was it, and all that kept going through my mind was, farmers come from gardeners. I've got to learn to grow food. I've got to learn to grow food. And then as soon as you get into it right away, you realize you can't really grow food. I mean, you need community. And then I realized, the problem, we have to completely redo the entire food supply in the United States. And we have to go back to more backyard food production and small farms. And so I was like a crazy mad woman for the next years of taking every gardening course, and citizen forester and permaculture certification, and actually even for a while running around in the national forest with the barefoot crazies, because they weren't losing weight. They were eating something, like, how do you do it? Because, honestly, when you think about that, when I thought about that scenario, one of the pivotal insights to me was, there are scenarios where no amount of money will buy you food. And it is so contrary to what we're used to thinking of. And in fact, my sister-in-law, bless her heart, she was like, the family, by the way, for a while, they said, oh, you're just getting too weird. Like, we weren't invited to birthday parties or, events or things, and she was like, Marjorie, this United States of America, we are never going to have empty shelves here. We're never going to have supply chain problem. You're crazy for thinking about that. I'm like, okay, I know what I know, and I can't stop doing it. So that's how I got started in it, right?
But what's interesting is that, to a certain degree, A lot of people might nod their heads and say your sister was kind of right. I mean, what was it? When was the last time there were empty shelves during the Great Depression in like the late 20s, early 30s?
Yeah.
Aside from maybe local things, maybe a little bit during World War II, but not really. So, but the truth is that we're in completely different times, and what you're talking is the past 15-ish years. So, and that the writing was on the wall. We're at the end of a cycle, whether you look at it economically, socioeconomically, culturally, we're in a transformational period. And one thing is now becoming abundantly clear that the freedom of the future is not just waving a flag and saying, I'm free. It means, how can you actually take care of yourself and your family if the stores close? And if the power, is not on, and if something happens, can you still eat and drink and be healthy? And so, what did you do next? Because over this whole course, you attracted a lot of high level people that joined you in your quest to teach others. So, what happened?
Yeah, so I just the first thing I did was I made a video called "Grow Your Own Groceries," and I thought, great, because I really loved actually growing food. Once I got into it, I was like, oh man, this is wonderful. And I thought, great, I'll make this video, put it on a website, and actually we had plowed back then. Video editing was not as easy and inexpensive as it is now, and we plowed, I don't know, $35,000 or $40,000 into the website and the inventory and the whole thing. And I thought, well, it's good. It'll sell itself. In fact, there were like 500,000 immediate illegal downloads back. Do you remember when you could do that? Like those torrent sites?
I do.
But
I do.
yeah. And so it was clearly something people wanted. And I thought, great, because I really loved growing food and doing research and figuring things out. But they weren't selling as well. And I didn't realize it. But right then was the beginning of the business of the Grow Network. And I really had to learn marketing and had to learn how to build a team. And it's very hard to have a business with just one product. So, and there's so many other things that we needed. Like I was going to a lot of places where primitive skills gatherings where people actually learn the skills that you would have known if you'd have grown up in the Paleolithic era. And there are a lot of people that just come out of the woods only a couple of times a year, and they'll come to these gatherings just to barter or trade or pick up items and maybe earn a few Federal Reserve notes for things. And then they go back, but they'll often teach skills. And one of them was a guy who knew a lot about treating infections without antibiotics. And these are techniques that have been used for thousands and thousands of years. In the old days with the Romans and the Greeks, where they're all bashing each other up in the sword fighting and all that. Well, sure, some of those guys died of their wounds for sure, but the vast majority of them were healed. They had medics that took care of that. They knew how to do that, and it was all with herbal medicine. And all those techniques are still completely valid today. I've had huge lacerations. I've been bitten by a copperhead snake. I've had impacted teeth, and
Oh, wow.
mastitis. When the first time we did it was I had a breast thing with one of the babies, and all of it was treated naturally just with herbal medicine. So yeah, just began. And then, so we made a video about that and taught people about that. And then there was, treating infections. And then there was, my teeth. I've always had problems with my teeth. So I learned a lot about alternatives to dentists. And then, growing, you got to learn how to preserve food. And it would be great to know how to hunt. And, it just goes on and on from there. And so I kept doing that. And that's how the Grow Network got born and grew.
So we're basically we have a maybe 150-year gap, right, in that knowledge where it started going down, industrialization, people were just doing other things were taken care of. The medicine sector really came in, and so people started forgetting, and it wasn't as important. And now it's making a full comeback, which is beautiful to see. We texted back and forth a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about this interview. I love what you wrote in that text, and it's so simple. All these years later, the mission statement is so simple and beautiful. You said, I teach people how to grow lots of food, even if they have no experience, are older, or out of shape. Yeah. I love this. Thank you for keeping it simple and for inviting people in that might have zero experience, because I think it kind of lowers that barrier, the roadblock of, I can't do this. And you're saying anyone can do it, right?
Anyone can, and actually for your lineage going back for millennium, everyone did. So, and those people didn't have Google. They didn't even have a food processor. And they're the ones who created all the heirloom, genetics that we have now. So, yeah, anyone can do it. It really is simple. As I've seen, I spent way too much time on your channel and your website watching videos. So you and everyone watching knows that there has been an agenda controlling humanity and millennium. And one of the narratives that has been fed to all of us is that you can't grow food, or you shouldn't grow food, or it's very demeaning to grow food, or only farmers are stupid. There's that narrative out there. And it's honestly, when you break through and go through it, it's like the most wonderful thing that you'll do. I mean, it's your hands are working directly with forces of creation. And it's just like magical things, miracles happen. You get connected in a way that we all used to be, that we've been cut off of. And it's just a wonderful path back.
I'm telling you, it's just the beginning of February, and Tennessee tends to have these weather, waves of there's the warmth that comes through in a period of just, it feels like spring, and then we'll go back to winter. So this just is happening right now. It's really warm. So my wife Christine she's all in already on getting ready to plant, getting ready to do all the things, and we kind of have to slow down a little bit. It's not quite season yet. But you're right. There is an excitement, and it's something that grows every year, and it becomes, you just can't wait for, what is this season going to show me, and what am I going to learn this year? And there's so much beauty in it. And I'm learning so much from my wife, who has 10 green fingers and 10 green toes. It's amazing. But Marjorie, for those who really, who think they can't, and maybe what you just shared inspires them, how can they get started? What is what is the structure here?
And so I do have that really simple 3-part system, is because I've really spent time. Most people aren't going to come to this until there's a crisis, right? And we have a crisis right now. We are at war. But what I recommend people start with, and most people also, they think of gardens. I'm like, no, actually, the most nutrient dense and productive things that you can do are going to be animal products. And you can do this right now, even in February. I recommend you go out and get 6 laying hens. And it's very simple to build a coop. In fact, the plans are at that DIY groceries.com. You can go there. It's free. And I show you what the coop looks like and the run looks like and how it should be built. And I recommend 6 laying hens. A typical laying hen, and this is actually something useful from our government, the U.S. duh, Joel Salatin, he calls it the duh, has about, 62 calories in an egg. And an average laying hen will lay about 250 eggs a year. They do take some time off if it gets too hot or if it gets too cold, and they need to do a thing called molting, where they change out their feathers. So they take off from egg laying. But you think about 6 hens, 250 eggs a year, that's 1,500 eggs a year, right? And so for you, that's 3 egg omelets every morning for breakfast, plus 33 dozen eggs left over to barter, trade, sell, use in other food. And an egg, again, one of those, there's a whole cholesterol, whatever myth, the story they had about eggs, which is completely untrue. Let me tell you a little bit about the magic of an egg. So we all have seen an egg, right? And there's that clear kind of slippery stuff on the out, and then there's that yellow, the yolk. And in a fertilized egg, you'll see there's a little tiny speck, and it looks just like blood. And it actually, what it is the genetic material from the rooster mating with the hen. And then that yolk is all the nutrients needed to turn that kind of clear slime into a full chick that has legs and a beak and eyes and organs, a little heart beating and wings, and a complete bird in like 28 days. All the nutrient, every nutrient that is needed to do this transformation from white slime, clear slime, to chick. And then that baby chick will have enough resources to be able to go without food or water for 3 or 4 days, because a lot of times the eggs don't hatch at the same time. And so nature's, have just set it up so that some of those little chicks will be hanging out there waiting until mom finally gets off the whole nest and takes them all out foraging. But if there's that much nutrients in there to cause that kind of magic to create a chick, what is it going to do to you when you eat it, right? So it's going to be doing magic.
As a matter of fact, I love our all natural, of course, completely organic egg breakfasts. I love them. Tastes wonderful. And if you have those kind of nutrient dense eggs, all you want is salt and pepper. You don't want anything else. You don't even want cheese in it. It's so good.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, Marjorie, if people want to get started, and again, this is zero experience, on a budget, go to DIYgroceries.com and just get started on a journey. I went through it all, and I love how you made it so accessible and easy. And so there's, every step is explained, and everything kind of just builds on each other. So you have time to digest the information. And you said this, that you had friends and family who said, I can't do this. I wish I could do it. And eventually, when they got started, they all turned into avid gardeners step by step, and just so grateful to you that you shared this information with them. But you also inspired a lot of other truth seekers and freedom fighters out there that joined your network. Can you talk a little bit about how that happened? I know you're friends with Mike Adams, a mutual friend of ours, who's also in the Grow Network. How come that all these people joined you on a journey?
Actually, I'll tell you the story about Mike Adams. He's so much fun. So I was living in Red Rock, Texas, and building community, building a self-reliant, kind of getting the resources together. And I call it dog and pony. So I would often have people come out. And I didn't know who Mike was when he came out. I mean, he was just starting. I think he was just starting to work with Alex Jones. So he wasn't the superstar he is now. And he came out, and I showed him, what I was doing. Here's this, and here's the orchard, and here's the rabbits and the chickens, and this is how I'm doing this, and this is why I'm doing this. And he was really impressed. And I said, well, where do you live? Because I'm trying to attract people to come live, near me that would want to do this, because you want to have self-reliant community, right? And he says, oh, well, I live, I forget where it was, and it wasn't Dripping Springs or Wimberley, somewhere way west of Austin, where all the people that have, the McMansions live. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. And he said, well,
that's fun.
Well, what do you, I know, right? He says, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, look, Mike, I mean, that's 3 hours more inland. You have way less rainfall. There's almost no soil there except for down in some low gullies. There's the food sources there are going to be cactus and that's about it. And you're surrounded by wealthy people who have no skills. And so he thought about that for a while. So, we kind of went our separate ways. He came out with that book, Food Forensics, which was an amazing book. And I said, hey, Mike, I really want to help you promote this book. It's just such a great book. People need to realize this. Can I bring my videographer? Let's do a video interview with you to help promote this book. And he said, sure. He says, actually, as a matter of fact, I've just built my own studio. Why don't you come over here? And I said, okay, that'd be great. And I'm preparing to drive, 4 hours across Texas to get to him. And he says, it's just in Cedar Creek, right near you there. And I said, Mike, why would you have a studio that's like 3.5 hours away from you where you live? And he said, oh, about that. He said, yeah, you were right. I moved.
Oh, I love that.
I know, right?
I love that. So you made Mike Adams move and get started on his farm and everything. I love that.
I helped him to see the wisdom of being in a different location. So let me just say that. Yeah. So Mike's been a lot of fun and has been a really good supporter of the Grow Network. And I really appreciate what he has been doing for sure. Getting the word out there. We really are at war. I want to go back to that. And it will come. I mean, with that whole immigration thing, it is going to be on U.S. soil, and it's that noose. They're tightening that digital noose, that AI noose, that chip in your brain, CBDC. Your phone knows everything about you noose, right? And if you're dependent on the commercial food supply, you are going to submit to whatever they want you to do, because when you get hungry enough, you will do that. And really, in order to win this war, I know it's so simple and so humble, and you'd be like, "What?" I'm like, backyard food production is going to be the critical component to winning this war. And I'm so honored and pleased that you're letting me talk to you and all of your friends, and hopefully we can inspire them to grow food also, because we need to win this war. I don't want to go into the tyrannical thing,
Well, there's so much we could go into, but the truth is that if this information that we're sharing on the daily and that others are sharing on the daily does not create enough inspiration and motivation to change, then it's useless, right? So this is also it's also like spirituality. If it's not practically applied, it's all in theory. But this is everything in a nutshell. And what we always say is it's not just preparation for a time period that might be uncomfortable. It is actually a change of lifestyle. And this is what happens naturally. You just go one step at a time and you begin seeing how much fulfilling it is to think about these things, to do these things, to put your mind in a different space. You're more in touch with nature, with creation directly. So there's so much that comes with it that people more and more start changing it. And even if you're in an apartment today, there's ways to do something there, and you can get started today. Now, Marjorie, if someone does get started today, it's February. If someone does get started today, how much can change in, let's say, 6 months?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you can be producing at least half of your own food, if not more, in 6 months. I mean, we go back to the chickens that we talked about earlier. Really, you can build that chicken coop over a couple of weekends. If you got the finances, just have somebody build it for you. But you can have that up and running, get the water system set up and the feed, go out on Craigslist or go to a feed store and pick up your 6 laying hens. It'll take them a couple of days to get adjusted and producing again. And I mean, really, within 3 weeks, you could be having your breakfast taken care of completely.
That's incredible. Another question. People always think you need acres and acres because they have this sort of industrial agriculture picture in mind that we've been all bombarded with in schools. You have these huge, long lines of single crops. And how much do you really need in terms of space to get started?
Yeah. So my former husband, his grandmother had been grown up in the country, and when I said I'm going to start growing food, he immediately thought of Nanny, who had an acre garden, right? Because Nanny grew up knee high to a grasshopper growing food, so she knew how to manage an acre garden. I didn't know anything, right? And I had an acre of weeds and frustration. So if you've only got a small amount of land, be grateful for it, because it'll prevent you from getting megalomaniacal. Honestly, a backyard size space. That's what I show people in the webinar. You're really 250 square foot beds for your gardens. Maybe about 150 square feet for the chickens, 150 square feet for the rabbits. There's not that much room. You can really do this, and that's assuming you're a beginner. In 6 months, you can absolutely be producing half, if not a whole lot more. The other really cool thing about this system is, when the in-laws show up on your doorstep all hungry, they used to think you're nuts. You'll immediately have okay, well, you're going to get to building a chicken coop, and you're going to be building rabbit hutches, and you're going to be doing this, and you have a whole system that you can immediately replicate and spread throughout your family and your community.
And you're building wealth, because you can count how many seeds are in an apple, right? But you can't count how many apples are in a seed. So all the seeds that you're getting and everything that's coming out of, Jim Gale always says this.
I love that. I love that.
I love that too. So I won't claim that I came up with it, but I love it because we see this every year, and Christine cultivates all the seeds, and they get better every year. And there's this wealth that you're just storing, and you can share it, and you can sell it, and you can barter with it. There's so much more that comes with it. And like you say, preservation. So I'd really encourage everybody to go to DIYgroceries.com. Really simple. DIYgroceries.com. Just get started. Don't think about it too much. Get started. You'll thank us all later. Trust me. Today's the day. Not tomorrow, not next Monday, not first of the month. Today's the day. DIYgroceries.com. Marjorie, I would love to extend an open invitation. There's so much more to talk about, I think, and we can go into the depths of certain things, but I'll give you the stage you're going out. What's your message, your parting message for today for our audience?
Oh, I'd love to tell you. So I got into this completely out of fear and panic, right? I was literally shaking. And now I look back on that fateful night at the Red Rock Community Center, and I am so grateful because I love growing my own food, and it just connects me into the earth. The process of growing food is more healthy than actually eating, the deeply nutritious food. But I just love it so much, and it reconnects me into my fundamental humanity, and it also the need I have to take care of my family, my kids, and to nourish those around me. It's just so deeply satisfying, even if we weren't talking about the end of the world as we know it, which is, somebody told me something funny. They would go, if I'd have known the apocalypse was going to take so long and be so expensive, even if we weren't in the middle of an apocalypse, like I would still be growing my own food because it's just so wonderful. So get over the programming and just go out and try something, even if it's just getting some chickens or growing some herbs on a windowsill. Just start trying it with something small and just see how your life transforms in about 6 months. And a couple of years from now, you'll be like, wow, that was the best thing I ever did.
Wonderful. Totally with you on that. Marjorie Wildcraft, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll hope to have you back soon. And Inspired Tribe, please hop over to DIYgroceries.com and just check it out, learn, and get started today. Thank you so much, Marjorie.
Thank you.
Inspired Tribe, we love you. We appreciate you. We'll be back with you again very, very soon.